The book De Bello Gallico, which is translated into English as The Gallic Wars, was written by Roman consul Julius Caesar from the years 58 to 52 BC. As a literary work, De Bello Gallico's purpose was to chronicle the Gallic Wars, fought between Rome and the Gallic tribes from 58 to 51 BC. I like to think that the fighting looked a bit like this. Pretty brutal, right? Anyway, the whole book is composed of 7 smaller books, with each smaller book representing 1 year of the fighting between Rome and Gaul. De Bello Gallico falls under the category of literature known as prose, which is essentially anything other than poetry. But don't worry, just because it's not poetry doesn't mean that Julius Caesar has lost his poetic license. Now, because the book is prose and is essentially just a play-by-play of the war, the book has very clear Latin, which is much easier to translate and read than other Latin works. The word order is very clear, which makes the book very classroom-friendly in terms of teaching students to read and translate Latin. Now, other than just to chronicle the events of the Gallic Wars, Julius Caesar's other main motivation to write the book was to cement his own political status back in Rome. Now, of course, in order to accomplish this feat, Julius Caesar was very biased towards the Romans when writing about the war. In this bias, he depicted Gaul as being very uncivilized, which in turn would mean that it's actually okay and ethical for Rome to be conquering Gaul. Now, even though Caesar's comments were clearly very biased, he did make an attempt to sound a little bit unbiased, and he did this through writing the entire book in the third person. With the book essentially being used as political propaganda when he wrote it, writing it in the third person made it seem like it came from a less biased source, giving it a little bit more validation as an actual account of the war's events. Now, I want to revisit derivative, something that I said earlier. I previously said that there were 7 books to De Bello Gallico, which is true, or at least until an 8th book was written by Aulus Hirtius after Caesar's death in 44 BC. Now that I've explained what De Bello Gallico is at its core, I'm going to give a very brief explanation of what each chapter of the book has content-wise. Book 1 gives expository information about the Gallian lands and people. Caesar then talks about how the Romans fought and then beat the Helvetii, and then fought and beat some German tribes who were brought to Gaul by the Sequani tribe. In Book 2, Caesar battles the Belgae in northern Gaul, and Publius Crassus battles the maritime states on the coast of Gaul. These 2 operations significantly extend the area of Rome's influence. In Book 3, the Roman army defeated several tribal uprisings, while another part of the army, again led by Publius Crassus, defeated the tribes of Aquitania. In Book 4, Caesar takes his troops into Germany for the first time. He then decides to cross the English Channel, something which no Roman force had ever done before, and then defeated the Britons twice. In Book 5, Caesar returns to Britain with a fleet of about 600 ships and defeats the Britons. He then returns to Gaul, where his troops are attacked by a Belgae uprising, who they then later defeat after reinforcements arrive. Not much really happens in Book 6. Caesar gives us an idea of the different cultures of the Germans and the Gauls, and then there are a couple of different revolts that are easily quelled by Caesar. In Book 7, Caesar manages to withstand the revolt of 14 of the Gallic tribes, even when they were almost defeated at Georgovia. The Gallic revolt reached its greatest power under Vercingetorix, an Armenian warrior of great power whose father had been chieftain of Gaul. In a major battle at Alesia, the Roman forces defeated Vercingetorix's army, and the revolt ended. This Vercingetorix, along with Diviciacus, are the 2 most mentioned Gallian leaders in the entire book. While there are many famous outtakes from De Bello Gallico, such as the magical druids and the dispute between Vorenus and Pullo, these are ultimately not the most important things to remember from the book. I think the most important things to remember are as follows. De Bello Gallico chronicles the events of the Gallic Wars fought between Rome and Gaul. The book was written with lots of bias by Julius Caesar to cement his political status back in Rome. And lastly, the book is a great example of Latin prose and is very easy to read. Thank you for watching my video.